water, without roofs over their heads, because they say it's their land, and it's for the people there, it's as simple as that. And we've heard the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, today echoing that sentiment, saying that they shouldn't be displaced. We've heard the French as well saying that the displacement shouldn't happen. We've heard the British Prime Minister today saying that they should be allowed to return to their homes. They should be allowed to rebuild their homes. And he said, you know, Britain should support them in that. So there's a lot of pushback, whether it's Palestinians going back to their rubble in Gaza or leaders in the region. It's loud and it's clear.
Yeah, it sure is. Nick, thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff, as well. And I'm lucky to be surrounded here at the table with some really talented journalists, Nia Malika Henderson of CNN and Bloomberg, Hans Nichols of Axios, and CNN's Stephen Collinson, who I always say on our air is our oracle, and I'm glad to have the oracle out from behind the curtain. So I do want to start with one of your quotes from your excellent piece this morning on this. And you said the following: he, meaning Trump, envisaged a real estate deal whereby he'd assume responsibility for Gaza and mastermind a job-creating urban regeneration project. He called it an American ownership position. A better phrase would be colonialism for the 21st century.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in this second term of Trump is this belief that having survived his assassination attempt, having won re-election, having got liberation from all his criminal threats, he believes that he can do pretty much everything he wants, that reality and everything that's gone before is not going to stop him. The conventions of domestic politics and the conventions of the Middle East. Sure, he sees this as a real estate deal, but it is, I think, a symptom of a president who's looking at a problem that's never been solved and at least trying to come up with things. The problem is, this suggestion is something that in the first term would never have got out, I don't think, of the Oval Office. Someone around Trump would have said, the people that told him what you can't do would have said, well, you can't come out and say that in public. Now, there either isn't anyone who wants to stop him from saying these things that patently seem absurd. The ones that could stop him, say Rubio or Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, they've seen what's happened to everyone else that's clashed with Trump, and they understand that they won't be around very long if they contradict the president. So it's a real dynamic of what's happening, not just in American foreign policy, but domestically as well.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was speaking to a Republican who might have been one of those who said, please don't do that, sir, who was telling me about the concerns about, where do we even start, about how the Arab countries would respond. This was last night. We've seen how they would respond. Concerned that they might even go so far as pulling out of the Abraham Accords, which is one of the crown jewels of Donald Trump's first term. And that, yes, maybe this is a madman theory of saying something that's so outrageous that when he gets something as compared to this as normal, as a two-state solution, that everybody can give him props. But it is so risky in a region like this with players like this.
He's improvising, right? Donald Trump is improvising, and he's unbound by any of, as Stephen pointed out, of any of the constraints that were on him in his first term. And we all just have to, again, stretch every morning and try to stay with him and understand both what he's trying to do on the first iteration of this, which is clearly just sort of mixing things up, right? Sometimes in diplomacy, you get credit for creativity. This is certainly a creative idea. Now, where you really get credit in diplomacy is for actually executing peace deals. And there's such a long distance between throwing an idea out and actually rebuilding and bringing peace to the region. But he's making the initial steps, and he is not going to be bound by conventional thinking.
Well, it's a good thing that John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, is a runner, so he does stretch every morning. And I'm not sure about Mike Johnson, but he's definitely
more of a yoga guy.
Maybe getting used to it. Let's hear what both of them said this morning about this idea.
We're trying to get the details of it, but I think this is a good development. We have to back Israel 100%, and so whatever form that takes, we're interested in having that discussion. But it was a surprising development, but I think it's one that we'll applaud.
As a more peaceful and secure Middle East, and put some ideas out there.
Homina, I think, is another way to say
what
it.
Details what details are they waiting for?
Yeah, a lot of details. But let me just also give you some other quotes, because I think these are maybe speak to the reality of the way that people are reacting. Lindsey Graham, I think that might be problematic. Tom Tillis, this is maybe my favorite quote ever. There are probably a couple of kinks in that slinky. John Cornyn, I don't know what to make of it. Check back with me tomorrow.
Yeah, listen, maybe he hasn't actually seen the presser. Of course he has. He doesn't really want to address it. I mean, Donald Trump telegraphed a lot of this is in his inaugural address when he talked about expanding American territory and kind of talked about himself as someone who is ordained by God to do whatever needed to be done to reshape the world and reshape America. And that's of course what we're seeing. You know, this could be improvisation. It could be the opening bid for a negotiation, but it's also fuel for Hamas. It's fuel for terrorists. This idea that the American military is going to go in and clear out that area of people who live there and whose homeland it is. It isn't nation building. It is territory expanding. It's as you said. It's colonialism. And the idea that Americans who Donald Trump has told, you know, too many wars, too much in blood and treasure in these other wars, the idea that he's going to now turn to this, it caught a lot of people by surprise.
Because this is inside politics, I want to go way, way back to the fall of 2024 and the election and the really big problem that Democrats, that Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket had with voters who on the left, and especially including those in areas that have a lot of Arab American voters who were so angry at the Democrats that they either didn't vote or perhaps in some cases voted third party or even Donald Trump. Just to give you a sense of the big swing, Dearborn, Michigan, of course, the home of a lot of Arab Americans. Just look at this swing. Donald Trump won there by more than 6%. 4 years earlier, Joe Biden won by 39 percentage points. So my question now is, when the Democrats who were saying, okay, you might not be thrilled with our policy in the Middle East, but wait till this guy gets in office, you know, there's a lot of I told you so going on in Democratic
Right.
places.
Well, that was the frustration because the Democrats couldn't get it across that, okay, you may be angry with the President Joe Biden at that point, but Trump will be 10 times worse. He's going to be the best friend of the Israeli far-right parties in the coalition that there's ever been. But the problem is this is politics and this is emotion, and that is a logical argument. But for the people that were voting against Joe Biden and who voted uncommitted, this wasn't a logical question. It was a question of humanity and emotion. They saw their brethren dying in massive numbers in Gaza, and that in itself was enough to cast a vote in the opposite direction. People weren't necessarily thinking about politics and foreign policy. This was a question of humanity.
Yeah, such a good point. Don't go anywhere because we're going to sneak in a quick break. We have some new reporting on the Justice Department